on this edition of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher.
You put him and Brett together, and it was Comedy Central in our quarterback room. And whether they were passing gas between each other and just smelling our room up. I mean, Andy had to keep literally a can of air freshener right there in his desk drawer. Nick meets me right there, and he just out of the blue just says, "How about Philly, Philly?" And I'm thinking, I paused and I was like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, that's it. That's the play. I remember Frank Reich said, "Coach, what'd you call?" I just said, "Philly special." And this is what it sounded like. Silence. I was like, all right, I guess I'm the only one that likes it. Anyway, and of course, the rest is history. The guys executed it flawlessly for the touchdown. Brett was probably a little bit stronger.
Wow.
He and I, because I spent 8 years in Green Bay, he and I played catch a lot. He was more of the loose guy, the cannon, not the loose cannon, but the loosey goosey in the locker room, sort of prankster, jokester. And so we're out there getting warm and loose. And he and I always did this together. And he would always want to play like burnout. Where you're 10 yards apart and you throw it as hard as you can until somebody drops the football. The toughness, mental, physical toughness, the shots he would take, stuff like that. Wasn't a big vocal guy, wasn't a guy that would stand up in front of the team and give a lot of rah-rah speeches, but led more by example. Kind of kept our team, when we went to 3 NFC championship games back-to-back, 2 Super Bowls back-to-back. I really think that kind of kept our team loose.
The greatest sports moments happen in seconds, but the stories behind them are timeless. Dive into the mind of the icons who lived those moments. No filters, just authentic conversations about the moments that define careers. I'm Justin Kutcher, and this is the Just in Time podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher, joined now by a guy who won a Super Bowl as a player, as a head coach, an FCS national championship as a player. He's now an analyst for CBS Sports. It is Doug Pederson. Doug, thanks so much for joining me, man.
Yeah, Justin, thank you for having me. The only one that eludes me is that high school state championship. I made it as a player to the semifinals, and I made it as a coach to the semifinals. Got beat both times. So I was just on the doorstep of that high school state championship and never got it.
And here I was about to call you a winner, and you just let me in on that secret.
Yeah, I'm such a loser. It's unbelievable.
Well, I am wearing this green for you today because I think most people know you as the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl winning coach. And it's amazing to me when I look at your playing career, how it kind of set up your coaching career. And if we can, before we talk coaching, I want to go back to the playing days. You came out of a small school. You signed with the Miami Dolphins. And correct me if I'm wrong, were you cut in the final cuts 2 years in a row by them?
Yeah, I was let go right at the actually the first year I was down there in 1991. Just graduated out of college and undrafted free agent. That first training camp, I made it to back then they did like 3 cuts.
Right.
There was like 3 cuts. And so I made it to like the second cut, not the final one, but the second one. Coach Shula brought me off. Actually asked me to come over to the side. I was getting ready to go out for an afternoon practice. And he says, "Hey, we're getting ready to go up to Minnesota and play a preseason game." And he said, "Doug, if you listen, your chances of making the team, are not great. We're kind of set at the quarterback position, but if you still want to come to Minnesota, and be with the team and hang out and all that, you're more than welcome to, and you can head home after we get back, or you can leave, you could leave now." And I said, "I'm good, coach. I'll leave now."
I can't believe he gave you that option.
He did give me the option to either go with the team, travel with the team for one last preseason game. I think it was the 3rd preseason game, and then get cut after, basically after we get home, after that game. It was crazy.
But okay, so he said they're all set in the quarterback position because they had a guy there named Dan Marino. So you're coming out of college, you're undrafted, and you go to training camp with some people say the greatest thrower of the football in history. What was it like when you're up close and you see him actually spin the ball?
Justin, that's a great way to describe Dan Marino. Just a pure passer, just an authentic, real, down to earth guy, but at the same time, um, wanted to win so bad. I mean, this guy wanted to win. He was a competitor. The way he attacked practice every single day in training camp, the way he demanded from his teammates in training camp. It was just a pleasure. And he was one of those guys when I was in high school and college, one of those guys I kind of idolized. I just like Dan Marino, he's the guy that I kind of love to pattern your game after and all that. But then you get a chance to go down there and rub shoulders with him and get to know him a little bit. And just, I mean, a tremendous athlete, competitor, back then too, the quarterbacks then were more the pocket passers, right?
Mm-hmm.
These were straight drop back guys that just could, read defenses and pick you apart. And that was Dan Marino. And learned a lot, that first year, and then obviously went back in consecutive years and got to know him really well.
You said this was a guy that you kind of idolized, right? He was one of your favorite players. You modeled your game after him. I've always wondered when here you are, you're not that much of an age difference between the two of you. And now you get the chance to be his teammate, right? And you get to be in that quarterback room with him. How do you get past the fandom and realize, okay, wait, I have to take this seriously. I can't just sit there and want to take a picture and ask for an autograph from him.
That's hard. That's really hard because those are the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to go up there and, have him sign a jersey, a picture, take a selfie with him and post all this stuff. In fact, later on in my career, I was able to acquire some memorabilia, much like I got behind me, but I was able to pick up a Dan Marino autograph jersey. I was able to pick up an autographed Marino football and some things like that, but yeah, when you're down there first time, you're just awestruck, it's just, this is your, I'm not going to say childhood idol, but I was in high school and college. So I was older. I knew exactly, what I was doing, but to be in the same room, the same meeting room, to have conversation, just for him to speak, to acknowledge that I'm even breathing the same air was a pleasure, to be a part of and to be able to soak up everything that, Dan Marino had to offer throughout, that first training camp for me, and just sitting in meetings and, the stuff he was able to do on and off the football field was just pretty special and just, awe-inspiring to me.
Did you ever get a chance to just play catch with him?
We did. I did. There were a couple times, early you get out, quarterbacks always got to the practice field a little bit early and, wanted to get loose and some of that. And so, so I had a chance to, a few times to just, he and I just, play catch out on the pitch, out on the grass and just, before practice really started, and just to, again, get to know him a little bit. He could get to know me, but at the same time, just to feel the energy coming off that football, with how he could throw a ball, the tight spiral. I mean, it's just amazing. And the where his arm angle was, I just sat there just mesmerized, just watching mechanically how he threw a football.
That's what I wanted to find out. That's why I asked, because he had that quick release. And so I think about, baseball, where someone is sneaky fast and it gets up on you quickly. Did you feel when you were when you're playing catch, you knew he threw it hard, but oh my God, that ball got there so much faster because of how quick the release was?
When you're playing catch, though, it's a little bit different than actually, a real-time ball. And so you didn't get to see the or feel that quick release when you're just kind of going through your normal sort of routine of warming up. But there were times when we started getting loose and you back up a little bit. You might take a little hop or a little bounce drop and get ready to throw. And then you could kind of feel that ball kind of get on you just a little bit. But it was not until we got into the drills where I could really see that ball come off his hand and the release that he had. the timing he had, with Mark Duper, Mark Clayton. We had Jim Jensen was on that team. Farrell Edmonds, a tight end, was on that team. And we had some really, really good football players. And just being able to see that timing with Dan Marino and the rest of the guys on offense was really impressive.
When I think about quarterbacks with strong arms, I think about Marino, I think about Elway, I think about Brett Favre. And then you shared a quarterback room with Brett Favre in Green Bay. How would you compare those two arms?
I would say Brett was probably a little bit stronger.
Wow.
Yeah, a little bit stronger. He and I, because I spent 8 years in Green Bay, he and I played catch a lot. And he always, he was more of the loose guy, the cannon, not the loose cannon, but the loosey goosey in the locker room, sort of prankster, jokester. And so we're out there, getting warm and loose. And he and I always did this together. And he would always want to play like burnout, where you're 10 yards apart and you throw it as hard as you can until somebody drops the football. And
or breaks a finger.
Exactly. And you're all 10 fingers are like this. It's just, you're just kind of slapping at the ball. But those are the things that we did. And I just noticed his arm strength a little bit firmer, a little bit stronger. Both of them could throw it, 80 yards plus. But I think from a standpoint of being able to fit balls into tight windows, Brett's ball seemed to get in there a little bit faster and a little bit stronger, a little bit harder. But it wasn't much more, it was not much more. And, just again, two guys. I'll tell you this now, there was one other quarterback that was in training camp with us. You remember this name? Played at the University of Houston, David Klingler. You remember that name?
I do. His arm was that strong?
He was in training camp with us in Green Bay. And I can't remember. I went there in 95. It was like in 90, 96, 97, probably somewhere in there, maybe even 99, somewhere in there. I'd have to go back and look at it. But he could throw a football harder and further than both of those two guys.
What?
Yeah.
Did he just have no accuracy?
I've watched him. I watched him do it. I watched him in practice do it. I watched him warm up. He and I would play catch. And then his biggest thing was, let's back up and throw it as far as we could. Well, you get to a certain point and Doug Peterson is not, I got to move up 20 yards just to get it back to him type thing. This guy had a cannon for an arm, and pretty kind of a 3/4, sidearm gunslinger out of the University of Houston, I believe. And pretty impressive to watch.
Holy cow. See, I'm thinking about you guys playing catch, burnout from 10 yards away, not having any gloves on either, because you're throwing the ball. So this ball's coming at you. That's got to be nerve-wracking.
Well, to your point, you don't want to. You got to keep your fingers so spread out that if you try to normally catch, a normal catch, you catch one on a pinky, you catch one on on a thumb. I mean, it's shattering your thumb. It's breaking your pinky, and you're on the you're on IR for 5 weeks, 6 weeks until that thing heals up. But there's so many games that he and I would play, from burnout to when the wintertime came around and we were in the Don Hudson Center. We used to see who could throw the ball up in the air and hit the roof. We're just warming up and we'd turn and throw it up as high as you could and see if you could hit the ceiling up there. And then it was a pitched roof like that. And so as we started towards the side, we would move in just a little bit where it got
steeper.
Greater,
yeah,
right? It got steeper. And I'm like, there's no way. I'm going to go back to, over here and do my thing. And so we would do stuff like that. Or, you've seen those nets that have the 3 pockets in it, and for quarterbacks and stuff. And we would play games all the time as we're warming up, just drop back and And again, he'd want to get back 35, 40 yards and throw it in the net. And I've got to one hop the thing just to get it to the net. But yeah, it was a lot of fun playing with him and listening to his jokes and watching him throw football.
You said just before that he was different than Marino and that he liked to joke around in the locker room. I think a lot of people, when you think of Brett Favre, they think about a guy who, was like that schoolyard football player. He just wanted to go out, sling it, and have fun. I don't know if a lot of people realize what he was like off the field. What was he like in that locker room?
He just loved the atmosphere. He loved the locker room. He loved the guys. He loved being around his teammates, but at the same time, he loved pranking his teammates and sometimes even the rookies and just a guy that enjoyed life, enjoyed everything. Everything he did was fun, and he made it fun. He made it fun for everybody around him. And just a pleasure. I never really saw him, I don't want to say angry, mad, because there were times in games and things like that he'd get ticked off or whatever, mad and angry, but he always had a smile on his face. He was always just a joy and a pleasure to be around, and a great family guy, and just a pleasure to have in the locker room, and somebody that really led more by, I think, his style of number one, the style of play, right, on the field, the toughness, mental, physical toughness, the shots he would take, stuff like that. But I think too, wasn't a big vocal guy, wasn't a guy that would stand up in front of the team and give a lot of rah-rah speeches, but led more by example. And sometimes it was the having fun and being loose that really kind of kept our team, when we went to 3 NFC championship games back to back, 2 Super Bowls back to back. I really think that kind of kept our team loose, looking back on it, during those moments.
It sounds like there are a lot of similarities off the field between Favre and Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning loves to play pranks on people. And what were some of the pranks that stood out to you that Favre either played on you or somebody else?
There were 3 that really stand out. One of them was on me, and so I'll start with this one. So it was my first year. I just got there in 1995, and I got there end of October, early November. The Dolphins had cut me in training camp, and anyway, I signed in Green Bay, and the big prank then was if you had to go use the bathroom and you had to not use the stand up, but you had to go sit down to use the bathroom. The big thing back then was do not shut the door, right? If you shut the door, you're going to get an ice bucket full of ice water dumped on your head over the stall of the bathroom. And so my first, week or two, I'm in there, and unbeknownst to me, I'm using the bathroom, and next thing you know, I get a ice bucket over the top of the stall, and that was the big the big joke back then.
That was the original ice bucket challenge.
That was the ice bucket challenge right there. The second one that I remember, this was before Lambeau Field was renovated, so we were still in the old locker room there at the stadium at Lambeau Field, and it was during training camp, and he took all of and he had help. He had help with the equipment and some of the trainers that stayed back, during practice and stuff like that. But he took all the rookies' clothes, their personal clothes, out of their lockers, and he would tie them with help, and he would tie them end to end, like one sock and then a t-shirt and maybe a pair of jeans, but it was all mixed up, and he had tied like in a rope, and then he would stretch that rope across the locker room in like a zigzag pattern, however far it would stretch. And so when the rookies came back from practice, all their clothes were tied in knots in a line, in a rope, stretched across the locker room from locker to locker, just all over the place. And he was behind that. So that was one that the rookies were like, oh my God, check this dude out, that was a pretty good prank. And then the third one that I remember, we were just in the new facility, the new renovated Lambeau, new locker room. And, Brett, he loves the outdoors. He loves to hunt, loves to fish. He and I would hunt, on days off or on Mondays and things like that. But he would, hunters know this, but you can buy these little vials of it's estrus, it's doe urine, right? And so what he would do is he brought some into the locker room, and he would kind of squirt it on a sock and then he'd go stick it in somebody's foot locker, like a defensive lineman's foot locker or linebacker, or an offensive lineman or something like that. And so you'd come back in from practice and it'd be like, what is that smell? But the thing is, it would smell the entire locker room. It wasn't just his locker or, whoever's locked it. So that was another one of the pranks that he loved to do, is just get some guys doing stuff like that.
And I always say this, that it's men playing a boys' game. And when you do that, you realize, oh my gosh, these men who are making a ton of money and everyone's watching them, they're just big kids. And it sounds like he was just a big kid, like a Peter Pan type.
He was just a big kid, just enjoyed having fun. But I'm going to tell you this, Justin, too, when the lights were on, it was all business. It was all business. He was serious. And that was the same way with Dan Marino. I mean, when the lights came on, when it was time to practice, when it was time to be serious, they knew how to flip the switch. But I think that was their balance too, and that was Brett's balance, was just learning how to have fun, because the game is stressful enough, and for his escape, I think, was just to have fun and be loose and being able to kind of prank some guys from time to time.
So what was the quarterback room like with Brett Favre and Jim McMahon?
So our quarterback coach was Andy Reid.
Right.
So it was Andy Reid. And Andy Reid and Jim McMahon actually were teammates at BYU. So that's how far back those two go. They were teammates at BYU. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, listen, the whole show could be about that year with those two guys. Jim was another one of those guys that loved to have fun. He was another one of those guys that was loose and loved to prank guys. And, he was an instigator all the time. And so you put him and Brett together, and it was Comedy Central in our quarterback room. And it just, whether they were passing gas between each other and just smelling our room up. I mean, Andy literally had to keep a can of air freshener right there in his desk drawer, because whether it was at Lambeau Field or at Lehigh University during training camp, where we were having, quarterback meetings and stuff like that, it got to the point where it was just so bad. You'd actually have to leave the room. It got so bad between those two guys. And, Jim never wore shoes other than his cleats. He loved to go around barefoot. As he plays golf barefooted and stuff like that. But just never a dull moment between those two. And Jim was always kind of picking on Andy a little bit, like, what's this offensive lineman going to teach me playing quarterback? I mean, what's he going to be? And he would say this stuff out loud in front of Andy too, just always fun, never a dull moment. But again, that's the thing that I appreciate about maybe those two guys, and really if you throw Dan Marino in there too, is that when it was time for business, that switch flipped, man. It completely switched, and they were all about ball, and Jim was very smart, football knowledge. Again, one of those tough, physical, quarterbacks. Had some great stories of his days in Chicago and some of those guys. But just both guys, a lot of fun to be teammates, and get to rub shoulders with those two.
So a couple of things. One, it sounds like I would fit in very well in that quarterback room with Favre and McMahon. And two, was that the reason, because of how loose those guys were, that you think, obviously you guys had talent on that team, but that you had the success that you had because it just kind of breeds the chemistry?
I do. In the quarterback position, it's kind of the face of the franchise, right? It's the one that the head coach leans on a lot, and a lot of times too, it's as I said earlier, Brett was never the rah guy. Jim, I didn't know him as a starter, but I could see Jim being more the rah guy, giving up and getting somebody's face, and Brett didn't have a problem doing that. It just wasn't his style. But I do think though that that's the reason our teams were loose. Our teams were, ready to go, prepared, whatever it might be for games. I mean, because guys like that just know how to, keep the team, on edge. You take it right to the line. You never cross the line, but you take it right to that line. And the teams were always, just seemed like they just had fun together. The 8 years I was in Green Bay, just, it was just a camaraderie that you just don't get every year. Every team's different, and I think it was a credit to guys like Brett, guys like Jim McMahon, that kind of are the glue that keep things together.
You mentioned Andy Reid was an offensive lineman who was the quarterback's coach. Andy Reid, you and him have a long history together. Not quite as long as Jim McMahon and he do, but he was also the coach that gave you your first chance as a coach. And I just wonder, was it because of the experiences that you had with him, or was it your experience as the head coach at Baptist Academy in Shreveport?
No, I think it was the experience that I had with him when he was my, whether it was my position coach. He was never an offensive coordinator. He went from quarterback coach to head coach in Philadelphia. And prior to being our position coach in Green Bay, he was the tight end coach in Green Bay. And Mike Holmgren had brought him in to be the tight end coach. And so even when he was the tight end coach, I was learning from Andy Reid, because there were things that he would share with me on different clues and different tips, some reminders about defensive structure. And these were my first 2 years in Green Bay, so 95, 96. And he was coaching me, even though he wasn't my position coach, because, Steve Mariucci was the position coach and he was coaching Brett Favre. And then Andy became, the coach after that. So, we go back a long way. And then obviously he brought me to Philadelphia, when he left in 1999, became the head coach there. I was a free agent. He brought me in, to kind of get that program started, there in Philadelphia. And then ultimately I went back after I coached high school for 4 years. After I retired, I reached out to Andy, and he had a position, available, a quality control. And I was the one position I didn't want, was drawing plays and putting playbooks together and breaking down the film. I told him one time too, I says, he asked me in 2004, my last year in Green Bay, we were playing the Eagles in a playoff game. And maybe it was a playoff game. You remember 4th and 26?
Yeah.
The Eagles? It was that game. Okay. And so I'm standing there, Andy is pregame warm-ups. He's got his arms folded and he's watching his guys warm up, and we're Green Bay and we're warming up there too. And he and I are kind of standing there shoulder to shoulder. So I'm facing Green Bay, he's facing Philadelphia, and he says, "Hey, you interested in coaching one day?" And I told him at that point, I says, "Yeah, I probably am, and I will." I says, "But I don't want to draw pictures. I don't want to put playbooks together." So fast forward to 2009, he hires me to put playbooks together and draw pictures and break down film. But it was really the best for me, to learn, learn the ropes from the ground up. And so in 2009, I got hired in Philly and under Andy Reid, spent 4 years there, and then 3 years in Kansas City as his offensive coordinator before, becoming a head coach. And he was still very instrumental, even when I was a head coach in Philly, still giving me advice and somebody that great resource for me, to lean on and ask questions of, because, he's been through it all. He's been, as a head coach, he's been at the bottom, and obviously he's had more winning seasons and championship seasons than most coaches will in their entire career. So just a great resource for me and a role model for me.
So what was it like going from playing for him when he's your head coach to now working with him and essentially for him as a coach on his staff?
Not much changed, honestly. I still did feel a lot like the player, that was playing for him as he was the coach. But, I had to realize too that obviously he's the boss, right? He's now the head coach, and I'm an employee. So just like a player, I mean, he couldn't necessarily cut me as a position coach, but he could fire me as a head coach, if I wasn't, doing my job. But I think just having that relationship that went back years of knowing each other, and his wife and my wife knowing each other and having conversations. And I mean, Tammy Reid used to babysit our kids. I mean, when we were in Green Bay, when he was a tight end coach and a quarterback coach. So, we go back, a long way. And so it was probably a little different than most coaches that he hires, that aren't former players or people that he worked, closely with. And so I think it was a little bit different. I think too, it was a way, he brought me along quickly and swiftly. I was quality control for 2 years in Philly. Then I became quarterback coach for 2 years. Then I became OC in KC for 3. And then I became head coach. So the journey was swift, but there was so much knowledge that he poured into, how to prepare for games, how to call games, even though I wasn't calling football games at that time, how to lead a franchise, how to lead a team, how to deal with GMs, how to deal all those things that I saw with him prepared me for my opportunity, when I became a head coach.
So that opportunity is in Philadelphia, and his first head coaching position was in Philadelphia, where he brought you along. What kind of advice, if any, did he have for you when you're interviewing for that Eagles job, knowing that you could be ending up in the place where he used to be the head coach?
The biggest thing that always stuck with me is he just said, "Hey, be you, be yourself." And you hear that quite a bit, from people. But it made a lot of sense because Andy spent 14 seasons in Philadelphia, and again, it didn't. Our first year was 1999. We were 5-11. We were not very good as a football team, and it turned quickly. Donovan McNabb was drafted that year in 1999, and then really from the next year on, they just went on a roll, and they were I think they were in the Super Bowl within a couple years after that. They were a lot of NFC, championship games, and a lot of heartbreak championship games against Tampa Bay and some of these teams. But, it just was something that I look back on all those times, and it prepared me, for becoming a head coach. But just the advice of just being you, don't be Andy Reid, and he, he let me in on a few little secrets about the organization and different things, but those were all things that was just information that I needed to know. Nothing more than that. And really just how to conduct myself and because having played there as a starting quarterback, you knew the fan base, you knew what the media was like. And, so I wasn't going in there with blinders on, and that really was beneficial to me. And that really helped me that first year in Philly in 16. Cause one, we needed to draft a quarterback, and we did. We struggled that first year, 7-9, didn't know if I was going to keep my job after that first year. And then, lo and behold, in year 2, we just take off, and we're 13-3 in the regular season and win a championship. So,
timeout.
Yeah,
You didn't know if you were going to keep your job after your first year?
I didn't
For
know.
real?
I really didn't know. I mean, there was rumblings that they might move on, from me after that first year and the different things, and I didn't necessarily believe that. I felt like, listen, I mean, 7-9 with the team we had, let's at least get 2 more seasons. Let's see where we're going to go, put the pieces together. And we still hadn't really finalized a football team yet, but yeah, that first year was rough. I mean, it was not easy. Not easy as a head coach, not easy as a play caller. We did draft. I felt like we drafted well early. We got us a quarterback who we felt was going to be the franchise, and he played lights out his second year. Obviously, helped us win a championship that second year. But yeah, I mean, it was a little nerve-wracking after that first go.
Wow. You mentioned the quarterback. It's Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, in that second year, was going to be the front runner for the MVP up until he tears his ACL. I think you guys were like 11-2 when he went down.
Yep.
And this is where I feel like your playing career helped prepare you for your coaching career, because you're off to this great start. You're riding this high. You lose who you think is your franchise quarterback, and you've got your backup in Nick Foles now taking over. What did your experience as a backup quarterback do to help you bring Foles along?
It definitely, being a backup, I think, prepared me for becoming a head coach. And I say that because you have to prepare for everything as a backup, just like you are a starter. And you gotta deal with certain things as a backup that you don't necessarily have to deal with as a starter. But being prepared that way, helped me, because I was able to help Brett, as a backup quarterback. I was able to help him on game day. I was able to help him prepare and study during the week. And so, leaning on those experiences, and now fast forward to Philly, Nick Foles, who I was on staff in Philadelphia when we drafted Nick, so I knew everything about Nick Foles. Now it's a couple years later, we get him back, and he's now the backup quarterback. He was the backup then, but he's had some opportunities to start a lot of games. And so, for me, it was just a matter of, now I can relate to what he's going through. I can help him prepare and really go back and fine tune what Nick Foles is and what he likes, and really, Frank Reich and I, who was my offensive coordinator, he and I could formulate an offensive plan that would help Nick, much like he did as a backup quarterback. When the backup has to go in a game, things change a little bit offensively, but you say that to say that the expectation is to still win, with the backup quarterback. You're not going in to just lose a game. You're going in to win a game if you have to. So, a lot of similarities between, being that backup and then becoming a head coach and helping a backup quarterback, come in when your team is, like you said, 11-2, and we just clinched the NFC East.
So I grew up a New York Giants fan, right? And I know that's like sacrilegious. Giants, Eagles, trust me, I know. With that said, I can remember when Phil Simms, I think they got off to an 11-1 start, and he got hurt, and Jeff Hostetler came in, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl with Jeff Hostetler. With Foles, when he has to take over, how does your role as a head coach change to try to help bring him along so that the team doesn't miss a step?
It doesn't change in front of the football team.
Right.
The messaging is the same. You're still the same person, but it's the behind the scenes kind of closed door meetings with Nick and I, or Frank, Nick and I, that basically we had to tweak we had to tweak our offense a little bit, not a ton, just a little bit from what Carson was doing to what Nick wanted to do, basically. And like I said, it wasn't a whole lot of changes, but it was changes enough that helped us win, that championship. So, but for me as the head coach, my messaging still had to be, straightforward. I had to be honest, transparent with the football team, all that. I wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. But on the side of that, we could really meet with Nick and understand Nick and really get him caught up to speed. Because again, when you haven't played in, 13 games, 11-2, it's 13 games in, you got to figure out in a hurry. Fortunately for us too, we had time, right? We still had 3 regular season games. I think we did have the Giants the next week. We had the Raiders at home on Christmas Day, and then we finished up the Cowboys at home after that, and then we had a bye, going in. So we had some time to figure this thing out heading into the postseason.
Be honest with me, because everyone says when a player goes down, next man up, next man up, next man up. I get it. I think there has to be some type of human element when the man who goes down is a front runner for the MVP and is your quarterback. So when you said you weren't going to sugarcoat things for your team, what do you say to them behind closed doors? Because in front of the media, you're saying, hey, we got Nick Foles, next man up, no problem. To the team, how are you addressing them?
It's interesting because that year we lost 5 starters. Jason Peters, our left tackle. We lost Darren Sproles, our punt return, kickoff return guy, sort of our H-back, scat back guy. Of course, we lost Carson Wentz. Chris Maragos was a special teams phenom, also a backup safety. And then we lost Jordan Hicks, our starting middle linebacker. So we lost 5 major contributors off our team that year. And then Carson was just the 5th one. He was the last starter injured. And so the messaging was already sort of in place throughout the course of the year. It was always, it's cliche, but it was always the next man up. And this is why I appreciate all my assistant coaches that year who got those backup players ready to go. And that's a lot of production lost on a team. And it's hard. It is hard to replace. It's very hard to replace those guys because your backups don't have and don't get the necessary reps to really get themselves prepared. We started Holly Pulivati Vaitai at left tackle, a rookie left tackle, to take over a veteran Jason Peters, player and who's a Pro Bowl, left tackle. Just a freak of an athlete, and now here
and a much easier name to say.
Much easier name to say, but this is where I appreciate Jeff Stoutland for getting, we called him Big V, getting Big V ready to play, and Big V played, the majority of the season when Jason went down. So, I credit my assistant coaches for, getting these players ready to go, but. Listen, the messaging was already in place, and it is full steam ahead. We're not backing off. I'm not changing my strategy. I'm not going in a different direction. Because listen, we were still winning football games, and as long as we were still winning, it is full steam ahead.
All right, so let's fast forward to that Super Bowl. You played in them. You were part of a team that won a Super Bowl as a player. You get there as the head coach. What is the week or the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl like as the head coach?
I mean, the biggest thing I remember leading up to that game is the fact that we were the worst 1 seed ever in the National Football League. Once we lost Carson Wentz, you might as well just throw in the towel. The Eagles are done. We can't do anything anymore. Backup quarterback. You got to remember, Nick Foles played for Chip Kelly, and he threw 7 touchdown passes in 1 game against the Raiders. This guy as a starter. So people forget kind of the history of Nick Foles just a little bit, some of the big games and big moments he's played in. And, it's obviously, what have you done for me lately? But yeah, we were the underdogs going into the game. We weren't going to be able to do anything. It was, I'm the rookie head coach versus the veteran Bill Belichick. It's Tom Brady versus Nick Foles. It's the mighty Patriots who just won the Super Bowl the year before. They came back and beat the Falcons. So it was all negative surrounding us, right? And that was it for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, it was just like, all right, thanks for coming. You get a participation trophy, and second place is great. And so I think that was a little motivated. That also kind of spurred. You remember the dog masks that came out? The guys on our team, that Lane Johnson.
Oh yeah,
Chris Long and the guys. It was really after the Minnesota game, the NFC Championship game, because we were the underdogs,
right?
I mean, we were the underdogs throughout the postseason, and so we beat the Vikings to go to the Super Bowl, and they put on the dog masks, but that was the mentality of our team, right? And I think that was fuel on the fire just a little bit that motivated us and really kind of kept us focused and grounded, because there was a lot of negative publicity around. I can even remember a poster that I believe the NFL put out. It was an advertising poster that put the Vikings and Patriots on the poster for the Super Bowl. And we got a copy of it and we put it up in our team facility.
Heck yeah, you did.
And it was like, this is the respect that we're getting, right now. And we're 13-3 bye week. Of course we beat the Falcons in which came down to the last play of the game in the divisional round, beat them. And then we beat the brakes off the Minnesota Vikings 38-7 at home. And listen, they had one of the top defenses in the National Football League that year. Really good offense. Beat them at home, still the underdogs. And then we go to the Super Bowl and we're the underdogs again. So that, again, that's what we were living. That was our world. That was even the local media was kind of on that same bandwagon a little bit, kind of saying, hey, thanks for coming. Patriots are the mighty Patriots. And so, listen, full circle, my messaging to our team was like, listen, guys, I did say this. I said, there is no Patriot mystique. There is no pixie dust that the Patriots, I said, listen, they're in these positions because they win football games. They go win football games. But more than that, their opponents lose football games. They have a costly penalty. They have a turnover late in the game. They pull away from their game plan a little bit and go in a little bit different direction because maybe they have a lead and maybe they don't get aggressive, whatever it is. But I said, guys, we're going to continue doing what got us into this football game. We're going to maintain the aggressiveness. If we have an opportunity to go for it on fourth down, we're going to go for it on fourth down just because that's what we did all season long. Our players were used to that, and they wanted to do that. And so I said, listen, guys, it's about us anyway, and nobody's given us a chance. I said, they've already crowned the Patriots as winners. Let's just go up there and let's go play for four quarters. Let's get it into the fourth quarter. Let's continue to play and let's see what happens. And so that to me was kind of our mindset all throughout the postseason. Nobody was giving us any credit. They were crowning the Patriots, the victors even before the game. And, again, that was our reality during that time.
So the Philly special, that wasn't crazy for you guys to go for.
No.
Was there ever a doubt to go for it, or was a doubt what play to call?
The doubt was the play call. The doubt was what play were we going to run? For me, it was your 4th and goal at the 1. I think we were up 15-12, I think, at the time, right before half. Maybe just under a minute to go.
You ended up going up 22-12 after, yeah.
Yeah, so we scored to go up 22-12 to go into the locker room. So it wasn't that. And look, this was my mentality going into that game too. Like, and this is kind of what I told our football team. I said, listen, guys, we have got to score touchdowns. And this is kind of what we had to say offensively, Frank and, the guys, we have to score touchdowns. We can't kick a ton of field goals because New England's too good. They're going to score touchdowns. They will score points in this football game. We have to score touchdowns. And so, that's why it was it was a no-brainer to go for it in that situation, to try to get on the board. Let's get a touchdown right here before half. I had called a play and then I didn't like the play. So I ran down and called the timeout.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm walking back to the sideline, I'm on the headset. I'm talking to the offensive coaches. Like, what do you guys like? I like, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. I got a couple other ideas. I wasn't just feeling anything really at the time. And then about that time, I get back to where I'm going, and Nick meets me right there, and he just out of the blue just says, "How about Philly, Philly?" And I'm thinking, like, I pause, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." I was like, "That's it. That's the play." And I wasn't thinking of Philly special like in that situation. It's more of like maybe a first, second, maybe even a third down play type thing. But never really a 4th and goal. And it's funny too, because I had my microphone off at that time. And so it was just Nick and I having this conversation, and he suggested this loud, and the whole thing. And I mean, he's literally nose to nose. And he says, "How about Philly, Philly?" And I pause and I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So he jogs himself back out to the huddle, and I click my microphone on, and I call the personnel grouping and get the personnel on the field. And we still had some time here. And I remember Frank Reich said, "Coach, what'd you call?" And I just said, "Philly special." And this is what it sounded like. Silence. Silence. Crickets. Chirp, 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 chirp. I was like, all right, I guess I'm the only one that likes it, type thing. And anyway, and of course, the rest is history. The guys executed it flawlessly for the touchdown. And yeah, it was just a special moment. It was a great time, a good play at that situation. And I'm just mad it didn't win an ESPY that year.
When did you guys first install Philly, Philly?
We put it in during the bye week.
Oh,
so 4 weeks ago.
Okay. So the bye week. So like the wild card. Yeah. So wild card weekend that week. Okay.
Yeah. We practiced it. It looked terrible. The first couple times we did it, Trey Burton couldn't hit Nick Foles. He overthrew him. He bounced it. He threw it out of bounds. Excuse me. Looked terrible, but we kept rehearsing it. I took it into the Atlanta game. We kept practicing it. I didn't put it in for the Falcons game, but we kept practicing it. But then we put it up for the Minnesota game, the championship game. Never had to use it there. And it started looking better. And then obviously we kept it in for the Super Bowl.
Okay. You said how, it was looking terrible early on. When you score with that play right before halftime, now you're running into the locker room. The guys have to be going nuts. What are they saying?
They are ecstatic. I mean, they're crazy. I mean, the coaches are coming down out of the booth and they're like, "Oh, it was a great play call. Great ball. Great way out." They're just fired up the whole thing. And the players are just, the players are excited. We got a lead going into the half. Yeah. So our locker room was a little bit crazy. I mean, and if you remember, obviously, the Super Bowl has an extended halftime. And it was like, we actually had it down to the minute. It was like 28 minutes and 32 seconds or some crazy thing. We had it down to the minute and the second. So, coaches are in my dressing room and we're going through all these notes from the first half. And I said, guys, time out. I said, we got 28 minutes. We got time.
Yeah.
Go to the bathroom. Go get a drink of water. And then let's come back. I said, we got time, So just trying to calm everybody down. But everybody's still excited, looking forward to the second half. But I could feel the energy in the locker room too with the players. That they really felt, I think, at that moment, like we can win this thing. Mm-hmm. We can definitely win this thing. And there was a lot of confidence and that propelled us in the second half.
When did you tell your staff or the team that it was Nick's call?
It really was. Gosh, this was definitely after the game. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything during halftime or during the game that Nick suggested it or whatever. But it was a while. It was a while after. I mean, when it became, people started documenting the play and interviews and things like that. That's
yeah.
Could be days, weeks after when it finally kind of surfaced that Nick suggested the play.
When I hear this story from you, it reminds me of arguably my favorite movie of all time, Major League. Have you seen it?
I have.
Okay, when Jake Taylor calls for the bunt in the ninth inning, and Lou Brown is like, well, that's a great idea. He puts the sign on. That's what I feel like could be for you guys with the Philly special.
And as great a play as that was and is, especially in the Super Bowl, that was the mindset of our football team, though. That was the players. They wanted to go for situations. It was kind of instilled in them, and the confidence was, coach, let's go for it. Mm-hmm. Whatever the play call is, let's go for it. This is our time. This is our moment, and so it just happened to be, I guess, the stars aligned, right? I mean, it was the perfect situation for that play. The guys had a lot of confidence in the play, even the guys in the huddle to this day, when you listen to guys like, Jason Kelce mm-hmm. and the guys talk about that play, it was like, oh yeah, this is gonna, they don't know what's about to happen, type thing. So, but that was our mindset all season long. I mean, we just didn't start going for fourth downs in the playoffs. It was something we did way back in like week 3, week 4, week 5. So again, it was something that our team and our players really believed in, had a lot of confidence in, and we were able to execute a lot of those fourth down situations all season.
So you mentioned the stars aligning, right? And I think on the flip side, it almost seemed like the stars were aligning for a Tom Brady-led comeback in the final drive. And I need to know, I see your face right now. There's time on the clock. Brady's at quarterback, starting at the 25-yard line. How fast is your heart beating? How nervous are you?
I mean, it's coming down. It's coming down to one drive. It's exactly what I had been telling my team for 2 weeks. Get it into the fourth quarter and let's see what happens. And it was literally coming down to this one drive. And he got the ball back with a little over 2 minutes to go and started on, this drive. And then out of the blue, Brandon Graham slips past the right guard, hits his arm, sack fumble into our rookie Derek Barnett's, bounce it, literally one hops into his hand, I thought when I saw it, I thought Derek was going to score.
Oh.
The ball was literally like right there. And I'm thinking, if he catches this clean, he could go. And I'm like, okay, so he didn't. He got tackled, whatever. But at that moment, I was able to exhale just a little bit. I think my blood pressure came down just a little bit. And I knew that if we could just get one first down, I knew Bill, Bill had to use his timeouts. He had to call his timeouts. And if we could run the football and try to get that first down. We could kneel it, and the game would be over. Instead, we were up 5 at the time. Instead, we send a rookie kicker, Jake Elliott, out to kick at that particular moment. Was the longest field goal in history for a rookie kicker. Drills it to go up 8. And now I'm like, okay, the worst that can happen is a touchdown and a tie or a 2-point conversion, and we go to overtime. Now I'm thinking, okay, we're feeling good now. They get the ball back. Of course, if you remember on the ensuing kickoff return, they tried a little razzle-dazzle reverse. They threw it back across the field, whatever, something, and we tackled them at like the 8-yard line. So I'm going, okay, all right, we got ourselves a little chance right here. And of course, we almost had an interception on that drive. It went through our DB's hands on the sideline. We almost got to Tom Brady. Fletcher Cox almost had a sack. But he got the ball up near midfield with 9 seconds to go in the game. And I'm like, there's no way. Hail Mary time, whatever. He dropped back, bought some time, threw the ball, and it literally felt like an eternity that ball was in the air. And I really had a hard time seeing kind of where it went, and I think our players did too. Even when it hit the ground, our players reacted like there was still going to be time on the clock, right? There was still going to be maybe time for one more play or something like that. But when that ball hit the ground and I look up and I see double zeros on that game clock, it's like, oh, I can breathe. And that's when obviously you're so excited and you're happy for the team and everything else.
At that moment, you're happy for the team. You're happy for the city of Philadelphia. You're happy for everyone. When does it hit you that your life is forever changed? Because no matter what, I know things didn't, you're not still in Philadelphia. You're not there forever, but I'm pretty confident if I said the name Doug Pederson to any Philadelphia fan, they'll be like, fucking Doug Pederson, yeah, Super Bowl. I mean, you got them the first Super Bowl.
Yeah. I'll say this. It was a while. It was a while. I can't tell you exactly the time or place, when it finally hits you. But, we got back to Philadelphia. I do know even after the game, sitting in the locker room, and really after you do all the media and all the different things, it takes a while. It's different. It's not a normal game. So, you're kind of in your dressing room and you're kind of just sitting there. You're just exhausted and you shower and you put your clothes. Now you got to go to this party and you just want to go to the hotel and go to sleep because your brain's fried. You're physically exhausted. And you still really don't know what you just accomplished. You in my mind, it's like, okay, I got to get ready for next Sunday. We got another game next Sunday. That's kind of what you feel like as a coach and a player. And so it doesn't really hit you even after the game. And, we go to the party, my wife and I walk in and it's just a madhouse. It's just people everywhere, and just having a great time. And again, I really didn't want to be there. We had family there. We had friends there. And we walk in, take a couple pictures, and everybody's patting you on the back and this, that, and the other. And it's just like, it still really hadn't hit you that you just won a Super Bowl. It really hadn't, And then you get on the plane the next day and you go back to Philadelphia. And I think now it's beginning to kind of sink in because too, when you're on the plane coming back, you got the Lombardi Trophy on the plane and you're carrying it back to Philadelphia, and it's there. And you're really kind of looking at it. It's like, oh my gosh, this is pretty cool. This is pretty special. We just did something, and the coaches are all sitting there and they're all excited and passing the thing around and get back to Philly. And there's a group of fans at the airport waiting on us, but we take our buses and we pull back into the NovaCare facility, and it is a sea of people right outside South Philly and right outside the NovaCare complex there in South Philly. And then it's starting to really sink in that, okay, this wasn't just a normal game. I mean, this is the Super Bowl, right? This is what you, as a kid, you grow up watching, and hopefully one day you can either play in it, coach in it, whatever. And so we go, there's a sea of people. My wife and I, we get in our car, we head home, and we're hungry. We are starving. We haven't had anything to eat all day. This is Monday after the game. I don't know, 5:00 in the afternoon, whatever. And my wife and I are like, hey, there's a Popeye's chicken, this next exit before ours. You want to get some Popeye's chicken? And she was like, yeah, let's get some chicken, mashed potatoes, whole thing. So we go through the drive-through, and I order, and I get up to the window, and the young lady that's helping us, she opens her window and she looks down and she says, it's going to be 14, whatever. So I could see her just kind of like, hold on. So she takes my money or whatever, and she goes, and she comes back and she goes, you're Doug Pederson. I go, I am. We just got back. She's, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So I actually park the car. I get out. I go into Popeyes, take some pictures with the employees, some of the people that are eating in there. Anyway, and this is the day after, whatever. So we go home, we eat the chicken, we're sitting down on our couch, and my wife's exhausted, I'm exhausted. We flip on the TV and we're buzzing through the channels, and I get to the NFL Network, and our game is on. Mm-hmm. It's on. So we sit there and we watch the rest of it. We watch the game on NFL Network. Nervous as all get out, even though we know the outcome. Nervous as can be, finishing up our dinner, and I'm just going, oh my gosh! I get the emotions back again, And then you actually get to see it in pictures. You get to see yourself on the podium with the trophy, doing that whole thing, like you've dreamt of as a kid. And I think at that particular moment, it's like, it's just a surreal deal. You got to pinch yourself, It's like, there's no, okay, I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I'm going to go to work, and it's, somebody else won the Super Bowl, and we're getting ready for, the off season. But yeah, it takes a minute before it really kind of sinks in.
How about the parade and seeing Jason Kelce show up in his outfit?
Fitting. Not the outfit, but fitting for Jason and fitting for the city of Philadelphia that he was able to do that. And then, we started at Lincoln Financial and went down Broad Street, and we turned that corner. And there's the art museum, at the end of that parkway, and the sea of people, Justin, I've never seen that many people in one place going bananas. They're hanging in trees. They're on light posts. They're on top of cars. They're hanging out of windows, the condos and hotels and office buildings. And, and then we get to the art museum, and then we get out on the steps, and then that speech that he gave, those were the right words at the right time for that particular team for that year. He talked about me. He talked about, and it's just that underdog mentality that we had, because nobody believed in the Philadelphia Eagles that year to do anything. And he put on a mumber suit and gave that speech, as passionate as it was, but he was dead on. He was dead on with everything that he said. And even to the fans of Philadelphia, like, this one is for you, the ones that came out and supported and been with this team for so many years, and generational, families from, grandkids to parents to grandparents to all the aunts and uncles. I mean, it was just fitting to hear that speech. And to kind of end our Super Bowl run with that moment, in that arena.
Yeah. It's awesome stuff. And I guess that was at that moment that you realized Jason Kelce would be the big star that he is today with a microphone.
Put a microphone on his face. Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
All right, Doug, I like to end all my podcasts with a segment I call This Just In. It's rapid fire questions. You can take as long as you'd like with the answers. And I do reserve the right to ask a follow-up. So the toughest player you ever played with?
I'm going to say Brett Favre. I'm going to say Brett Favre.
I had a feeling you were going there.
Yep.
How about the toughest player you ever coached?
Jason Kelce.
Why?
Yeah. So in 2020, which was my last year in Philly, we lost 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen that year. And he was hanging on by a thread. Literally, he had elbow, he had shoulders, he shouldn't have been on the football field, honestly. I mean, he just physically just wasn't, but he wouldn't pull himself out of practice, wanted to play, and he wanted to do it for his teammates. And that showed a level of courage and toughness to me that it's the reason why guys like that are great players, they're great teammates, is because of the sacrifice that they make physically with their bodies for their team. And so that to me was that's a no-brainer, Jason Kelce.
How about the hardest hit you ever took?
Hardest hit was 1999. You remember 2 defensive linemen by the name of Brad Culpepper?
Yes.
I think it was Brad Culpepper, Tampa Bay. It was Tampa Bay and Warren Sapp. It was Brad.
Was it Culpepper? Anyway, I obviously know Warren Sapp.
It was Warren Sapp and Brad. Was it Culpepper?
Yeah.
Anyway, not Culpepper.
Yeah, D-tackle.
D-tackle.
Yep,
Would have been
Tampa Bay.
90,
Yep.
99.
Mm-hmm.
So one went high and one went low, and I got crushed. There was another one in college. I can't remember the team I was playing because I probably got concussed a little bit. But actually, I was wearing contacts and knocked my contacts off of didn't knock them out, but just knocked them off my pupils. I was like, I can't see. And I was like, whoa. Yeah.
How about
Ray Lewis.
Oh, he got you.
Yeah.
He broke your ribs?
When I was with Cleveland. Yeah, we were playing Baltimore. I went back to pass. Of course, came right through the A gap. Stuck me right in the ribs. Yeah, that one didn't feel good either. Oh, and Corey Fuller, Minnesota, broke my jaw right there. Crown of his helmet. Back then, you could hit with the crown of your helmet and never get a flag. Yeah, that was one of the hardest hits too.
How about the toughest coach to prepare to play against?
I got to pick one.
I would say 1 and 1A.
So, Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, and I've coached against both of them.
Is it because you know him so well and he knows you so well?
I think it's some of that, but I just know how he prepares too. Very similar to Bill that way. And the third one for me would be Sean Payton. Sean Payton, that dude, he's a grinder. And back when he was in New Orleans with Drew Brees and all that, I mean, we just saw it in the Hall of Fame ceremony with those two, and that was special to see and relive that memory. But Sean Payton would be another one.
How soon after you won that Super Bowl did Andy Reid call you?
Oh, right after the game. Right after the game. I had 205 text messages, and some of them were family strings and things like that, but 205. But yeah, he was definitely one of them.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah.
You and I met on the golf course. So I have to ask the question, who is the best golfing coach in the NFL?
Me? No. Well, if you think about Lake Tahoe, when I participated in Lake Tahoe for the American Century Championships, I mean, I was out there with Sean Payton, I was out there with Urban Meyer, I was out there with Mike, Sean McDermott, call him Uncle Mike in New England. New England head coach, Mike Vrabel. Yeah, Mike Vrabel. He was out there. Yeah, I mean, none of those guys. Sean Payton's okay, not a great golf. None of those guys play golf. That's the problem.
Maybe a better question.
That's a hard question.
Who wins in a match? You versus Kelce.
Golf?
Yeah.
Me.
All right. I had a feeling.
Do you see him play golf?
Yeah. I've done it. Now, the last question, because I'm looking behind you and I see a Philadelphia Phillies jersey, an Eagles jersey, and I know you have a Flyers jersey over there.
Right
so the
there.
Greatest perk for being the Super Bowl winning head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles has been what?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that question before.
Oh, dang. Heck yeah.
That's a great question. The greatest perk. We got to use, my wife and I and our family, we got to use the private plane that the Eagles had. That's a perk I could always get used to.
You and me both. I'll become an Eagles fan for that.
Yeah. That was definitely a huge perk being able to do that. Yeah, we didn't go to the White House that year as a team, which I look back and regret that we didn't get a chance to go. But that would have been nice. But that's really not a perk. That's more of just
or I guess the greatest experience that you got as being the head coach of the Super Bowl champions.
I will say, I mean, when you look at these jerseys back here, I mean, there were 45,000 people in the stands when I threw that pitch out. Opening day, April, the next, in 2018, it was 2 months later. That to me was pretty special. That was pretty cool.
How nervous were you?
I was probably more nervous doing that than I was at the Super Bowl.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, definitely. And I had to, they have a like a bullpen thing, underneath the stadium there and a batting cage. I probably warmed up for 30 minutes. I was sweating bullets down there.
I would have loved it if you brought Favre back just to play, to warm up.
Hey, would have been burnout for sure. Oh my goodness! But that one there was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Honestly, this was really cool. Some great stories. I appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely.
I didn't even get a chance to get into the whole play calling, what you guys see on the field. We'll have to do that again because
we'll do it again.
Yeah, there's some great stuff, but these stories are awesome. Doug, I appreciate you doing this and hope we get out to the golf course soon.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it again for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.